This is Blacklisted Radio. It's the 25th day of October 2014, and it's been a crazy week. This is your weekly Blacklisted Radio podcast. Thank you for tuning in or downloading the show at some future point, probably during the week. And what a week it has been. My name is Doug Owen, by the way. I'm the senior editor of blacklistednews.com, host of this show. The website dedicated to this show is blacklistedраdio.com. You can go there and subscribe to our Roku channel. If you have a Roku, we have a Facebook page, Twitter, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, all of the places that you would expect to find a podcast. You can find this show and the other show I do with Charlie McGrath that we have been delaying, or that has been delayed for some point this weekend. We're going to end up doing it, but enough of all the small talk. It's good to be back here in the studio. A lot of stuff to get into. We have more on Ebola. I know some of you have probably already come to the point where you are just over it. You're waiting for the zombie apocalypse. Anything shy of a zombie apocalypse or a full-on martial law, FEMA camp quarantine of average people being rounded up. And, well, there's even rumors that some people are being taken to black CDC sites. We'll get into it. Lots of conspiracy theories, lots of violence this week. It's been a very interesting week. Shootings. We're going to get into the shootings that have taken place in Ottawa and there in Washington State. Some of the other relevant topics of the day. But before we get there, let's just talk about Ebola for a moment. There has been some pretty interesting pieces coming out about weaponized Ebola and looking into the potential for this latest Ebola outbreak, what chance it may be that this is somehow government-sponsored or man-made release. And even the mainstream media has been entertaining the notion. So I saw this. Old Thinker News had a pretty interesting piece. Daniel Taylor brings us up to speed on some of these projects, and you can't dismiss anything. You have to be open to any idea, no matter how absurd it may seem. And I think that a lot of people that would immediately just put any kind of government responsibility out of their minds and into the realm of conspiracy theory, you're doing yourself a disservice. You should be open-minded, and history proves that things that seem pretty horrific and unimaginable and just, out of the realm of possibility, a lot of times are true. And so anyway, South Africa in the late 1980s had a pretty interesting guy that this Dr. Wouter Bassoon. If you haven't heard of him, you may. There's an interesting video we don't have time to play here on the show, but it'll be linked up, and it is on blacklistednews.com, and we may put it into the comments there on the YouTube video and the like, some of the assets for the show, if you will. But anyway, there was this secret bioweapons project called Project Coast, and I looked into it quite a bit because it is relevant, and it really, I think, highlights at least some people's opinions of eugenics and other popular topics that have been popping up in the mainstream this week. And I'll mention some of those coming up. But anyway, Dr. Wouter, probably Wouter Bassoon, sounds Dutch, launched a secret bioweapons project on behalf of the South African apartheid government in the late 1980s. The bioweapons program officially ended in 1994, but there's been no independent verification that the pathogens that he created, and he created some really nasty things from Marburg viruses, other Ebola viruses, cholera, anthrax, looking for biological agents and trying to figure out how, you can manage huge populations of people in Africa. And the amount of focus on the population control aspect of all of this has really risen up in the last few weeks. I mean, when you look at how many people are advocates of depopulation or population control, population management. Sell it however you want. Try to put a little spin on, the of course, pretty bad reaction to a problem that you perceive with world populations. Actually, there's an infographic. I wasn't going to mention it, but there's an infographic, and it brought up a lot of interesting comments. But population control, let me just find a CONTROL. Infographic. That's what I need to look. INFO graphic. Yeah, the overpopulation infographic is out there now. So let's just talk about it before we get into the Ebola czar, his comments. The Ebola czar, and I just like calling him that because, number one, Republicans are using that term. Number two, I mean, the guy's a complete crony. He's a political operative. He is he's actually the perfect person to turn this into a political football, and it already is. But the Ebola World Population Infographic, or the World Population Infographic, you can find it at blacklistednews.com. But it has a lot of interesting numbers that are kind of scary. Current world population 7,997,000,000 plus. They say that the population at the speed at which we are propagating will be another up to, let's see, 1 billion more people. By 2015, we'll have 9.6 billion people. 2025, we'll see 8 billion people on planet Earth. And can planet Earth feed us all? Can we all live at a reasonable standard of living? Can we all share the resources that are so scarce and so finite on planet Earth, and do it in a ethical and reasonable way? I mean, when you look at the world today, what we have is just a huge contrast between people that have nothing, absolutely nothing, no food, barely able to get potable water, just sanitation, people living in just the most horrendous way possible. The plight, you look at some of the places in Africa and other places where people are just starving, and you have to wonder, well, the current system we have today is not very equitable, and it's obviously not allocating resources effectively to those people. So the obvious answer is, why don't we just get rid of some of these people that just can't pull themselves up by the bootstraps? I guess that would be the harsh eugenicist, kind of mentality, or the idea that natural selection will take care of most of these issues. And it's funny because I wouldn't think that my mom would be a eugenicist, but she did have an interesting point. We were talking about population and the climate change and how because she buys into some of that, and because there's plenty of it on TV, and if you're a denier, you're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're potentially dangerous. You could be a dangerous person. We've learned that this week. If you've been watching the mainstream media, that people that are conspiracy theorists could end up being active shooters. But back to the point, she was saying that she thought it was pretty inhumane that we would vaccinate people, that we would do all these wonderful things in her mind for the Africans, but not give them food, not give them a way to sustain themselves, not give them the tools necessary to live, a quality life, or to be able to build upon something. I mean, not giving them the structure that is required for them to pull themselves out of this horrible situation. I mean, it's one thing to vaccinate you against cholera or some of the other popular diseases that are abound, or giving people a well, or some other putting them in a school so they get education, and giving them rice and other bagged food, and that's great. I mean, you're helping people out, you're feeding them, but you're not really helping them. You're keeping them in limbo. You're giving them just enough to exist, and that is only going to last as long. It's not a long-term solution. It's just enough to get them by until to be forever in need of assistance. It's kind of like the economy. $200 billion a month is what it takes to keep the economy afloat. Not going to get into the story, but just think about that. I mean, it's kind of the same situation. So anyway, when my mom said, well, that's pretty inhumane. I mean, because you're just helping people enough to keep them there starving and in pain. And really, if you think about it in an ethical way, that's really horrible. You're just keeping people alive just enough so that they can kind of suffer and be exploited and, have experimental vaccines tried on them and to be guinea pigs for whatever it is, or just, working in the mines or, other pretty, sad things that you could do in some pretty horrible places around planet Earth. Not very humane. Not that my mom's a eugenicist. She's definitely not an advocate for the government sterilizing you or any of the other things that, Obama's and Bush's former scientific czars were into, like Holdren and the Ehrlichs and all of the other folks out there that, really do focus on the population and the amount of people on planet Earth. So I think it's a valid topic. Ebola brings up this only because some people that believe that we need a lot less people would not be nearly as enthusiastic to cure a disease that seems to really plague places in Africa and the black population in general. Those are the people that need the help. Those are the people that Bill Gates and the rest of the scientific elite are trying to help, allegedly. And back to the point, I don't know how much you're helping them, giving them short-term solutions and not a real way to actually sustain independent life. If you're just on the dole for the rest of your life, living in poverty, starving, just doesn't seem like it's better than maybe even dying. I mean, would you want to be tortured for the rest of your life, or would you rather die? I would say that a lot of people would choose death. I mean, look at what's happening in Guantanamo Bay. People there are trying their best to die. They're trying to starve themselves, and the government has to force feed them. They have to stick tubes down their noses and shove them, full of Soylent Green pudding to keep these people alive. So, given the opportunity, given the chance, some people would probably rather die than live in these circumstances. But, that's a real debate. I think that when you look at a lot of the examples of the energy that will be needed in the very near future, we're going to have 45% more energy by 2025 to sustain the billion plus people that will be on planet Earth. I never get this, though, because it just seems to me that if you have such a huge amount of population control and that you have, all of these eugenicists that are just in love with killing everybody, they're not effective at getting rid of the population or, stymieing the growth of the population. So, you have real concerns. We'll need 30% more water in 2025, according to this infographic. We're going to need 50% more food. So what does that mean? Well, if everything goes to plan, you and I will be, number one, we won't be able to get animal fat. We'll probably have to eat the pink slime. If you look at beef prices today, all-time highs. If you're getting grass-fed beef per pound, I've seen people paying as high as $7, $8, $9. It is really, really expensive. At the grocery store, just getting the USDA grade, whatever, you're paying for something. And that is hitting people hard. It's more expensive to eat good food. Go to Wendy's. Go to any of these fast food chains that used to, be the place where you could eat for next to nothing. You could fill your gullet for a few bucks. Not so anymore. You get you a couple burgers at whatever destination it may be. It's not cheap and it's not good. And there's definitely a huge shift in the food industry that's happening right now, and prices and where people are going to eat. And that's number one, it's the economy that's changing that in people's eating habits, the austerity diet. But number two, it's awareness. 30% of the McDonald's corporation's profits are gone. Now, don't think for a moment that they don't have. People love to point to this as the huge shift where Amazon and McDonald's are not making money as much as they used to be. Oh my God. People are starting to realize that mass-produced crap is not the best thing in the world, that even though the television's telling them that it's delicious and good, when they go there, it doesn't look anything like what they were getting. And I think that not only that, but the fact that places like McDonald's, they want to remain relevant, and so they're trying to incorporate all of these healthy options into their product line, into their menus. And who wants that? I mean, if you're going to McDonald's, you want some deep saturated gross food. I mean, that's what you're going there for. You want fried products. You want breaded, salty MSG goodness. That's why people go there. You don't go to McDonald's for the fruit cup. So I think it's also, people losing their identities, where we have this homogenization of what you can get, where, you go to McDonald's, they're now selling you tacos. You go to Taco Bell and they got a burger on the menu. I mean, they've all lost identity. And I think that even transcends into politics. Democrats used to feel this way about certain topics and that way about other topics. Everybody's trying to become electable and to become relevant. So the margins between differences between the two parties are, less and less year by year. And so that's why people are becoming, as those, groups, the Democrats, the Republicans become more one centrist, one universal voice. People are going to go outside of those two because they're really only one. They're not an option. Same thing with, McDonald's or Wendy's or Dairy Queen or any of these, fast food chains. They're all the same. You can get the same crap, the same breakfast sausages. Go to Jack in the Box, you're getting the same product. It's so similar. There's really nothing that's distinctive or interesting or compelling about any of these options. And ultimately, it becomes the economy. I mean, conscious consumers, and there's more and more of them, are turning away from those options and turning towards things that are just more healthy and more delicious. The more you know about fast food, if you've worked in it, you don't want to eat it. It's pretty simple. All right, so overpopulation, I've got a solution. Feed them McDonald's food. There you go. It's two birds with one stone. When it comes, it's not to make light of the situation, but the problem is that everyone wants their cake and they want to eat it too. And you can't have that. You can't have huge burgeoning populations without good economics, without, I hate to use the term, but some kind of sustainable solutions to fix the problems. If you can't fix the problems today, you're not going to be able to fix the problems that are going to be coming in the very near future. I mean, if you look at where we're at today in this country, in the United States of America, and we're doing a lot better than those poor people around the world that are living in third world abject poverty. The average American 50% of Americans are now making less than $28,000 a year. You and I and people I know are right there in that category. I can easily fall below $28,000 annually with the current work that I do and swing in the economy. So if you're not there, you could be there. That reality is very close to where I could be. I'm pretty fortunate at the moment, and being fortunate, that's just a short-term solution. You're just fortunate for the moment. You never know what could happen. You never know what might take shape in the very near future. And if you look at most of the metrics, doesn't look good. So, I think that the debate that many people don't want to have is, well, what do we do with this? Okay, because you have to have long-term thinking. You have to have long-term investment. And that means more and more money that we don't have because the government has squandered so much of it. So what do we do? Well, the answer is we need more money from you and me and everyone and Fortune 500 companies and all of these governments. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But, that's what's we need that today. And for the populations of tomorrow, we need that for tomorrow. So you can't be fiscally conservative and want huge burgeoning populations to expand or to balk at the idea of controlling populations. You have to have that debate. Otherwise, we're just going to have a way worse situation in the very near future. And, the people that are bringing attention to this, all of them are being put into the cult where even talking about it, even saying, well, I mean, there's things that we all have to consider that, the world has to deal with. You're automatically, this Ron Klain guy ready to kill all of the African people. And I listened to him. And of course, one of the things that he thought was a paramount issue was population control. So why would you have this guy? I mean, this is just how bad I think the tone deaf, the political body, and especially the Democrats have become, is that they would actually, put a guy that has made videos talking about population control as the Ebola czar. I mean, it really, really smacks of idiocy and pretty incompetent. But some of the comments here at Blacklisted News on this and the videos that have been attached to the comment section are pretty interesting. Some of the people say, hey, we got to do something. A lot of the overpopulation is actually caused by religion. More babies means more followers mean more dominance. Christians tried that. Catholics tried that. Muslims are now trying it. And don't even get me started about India. Commonness has gone. Insanity now rules. So I love the comments, okay? Because Ebola can be put into so many different political campaigns. I talked about how it was a political football. It is, okay? And so is overpopulation, okay? Blaming God, blaming Christianity, blaming these different, different targets or different, religions or ideologies. All of these things that end up taking the brunt of this or becoming a political football in this campaign, to me, just shows how self-serving this has become. It's all for that. So anyway, Ebola, is it weaponized? Before we went into a long discussion about things that are almost more dangerous, like McDonald's. More people die in this country from McDonald's and heart disease than they do from Ebola. You're more likely to die from things that are not nearly as scary. But the constant conversation about Ebola and what the government's doing now, you have responsive, reactive governments. I mean, Connecticut. I didn't mention this last week. They have a state of emergency. The governor put this forward so that they could get more money. So using this to blame religions over population, needing to reallocate resources, climate change, the NRA, racism, lots of racism. I mean, Chris Brown, Farrakhan saying that this was released by the U.S. government as a weapon against the black population. That on top of what's happening in Ferguson, the constant stresses on race relations. I mean, it just becomes this huge mess. And of course, it becomes, I think, at least rightly, it becomes a discussion about what we're doing with these different biological weapons. Now, yeah, you can look into Wouter Bassoon. The only thing that is questionable is, who he has allegiances to, and whether or not he is being completely honest and forward, saying that the CIA paid him to go rogue, to create these weapons for them to use them in population control. It's not surprising. Not surprising. I mean, if you go back, the Age had a interesting piece about Nobel Prize winning Australian microbiologist Sir Macfarlane Burnet, who secretly urged the Australian government in 1947 to develop bioweapons for the use against the overpopulated countries of Southeast Asia. In a 1947 meeting, the New Weapons and Equipment Development Committee, the group recommended that, quote, the possibilities of an attack on the food supplies of the Southeast Asian and Indonesia using biological weapon agents should be considered by a small study group. So these are the kind of things that are, part of the game plan, part of the arsenal of weapons that you can use to control and combat the growing population. And that is, that is something to look at. Project Coast. I went to the Wikipedia page. It has one. So it's not a conspiracy theory. This really did happen. In the late 1970s, South Africa became increasingly involved in Angola and operations against Soviet-backed SWAPO and Cuban and Angolan troops. A perceived threat that its enemies had access to battlefield chemical and biological weapons led South Africa to begin ramping up its own program, initially as a defensive measure, of course, as everything, and to carry out research on vaccines. As the years went on, research was carried out into offensive uses of the newly found capability. Finally, in 1981, then President P.W. Botha ordered the South African Defense Force, the SADF, to develop the technology to a point where it could be used effectively against South African enemies. In response to the head of the SADF's South African Medical Service to be scaled up in a 1983 Project Coast was formed with Dr. Bassoon as its head. So there's no question that he was there and he was doing this research. So, and this is actually a very well vetted article or wiki page. It's one of the few that you would see about a biological weapons program that didn't have any, question marks, and everything here is documented because it came out in trials. This was a big deal in the early 1980s, and was part of the playbook to fight the communists. I mean, it's no different than, dropping barrels of botulism infested rotten shrimp into Korea, during the Korean War. That was pretty, it's pretty well known now. There's a documentary film called Behind the Eight Ball that brought a lot of that to light. And it's interesting. It kind of story about, it's a personal interest story that reaches out into other topics and goes back into history. But anyway, this even ran all the way to pretty recently. So anyway, after the weapons of mass destruction programs were stopped, and that's what they were, Project Coast created a large variety of lethal offensive toxins and biotoxins, other weapons, in addition to the defensive measures. Initially, these were intended for use by the military in combat as the last resort. Isn't that always we're only creating these weapons of nuclear destruction as a last resort? When everything else fails, when we're going to be toppled, when politicians are in danger, we will release these onto you out there, the population. So, that really seems pretty self-serving in that, if you do think that the government is, corrupt, or you do want to use the political structure to change the system, as a last resort, we could use biological weapons. So I'm glad that didn't happen in South Africa, allegedly. But it goes on. They were worried about this falling into the hands of terrorist networks, blah, blah, blah. in May 2002, Dan Goosen, the former head of the South African Biological Weapons Program, contacted the U.S. FBI and offered to exchange existing bacterial stocks from the program to the U.S. in return for $5 million with, of course, he wanted immigration permits for him plus 19 other associates and their family members. The offer was eventually refused by the FBI, claiming the strains were obsolete and therefore no longer a threat. Now, what really happened? Who knows? But they were using these. It wasn't just, for mass destruction. They were using them for riot control agents, other nerve agents. They were using these as a way to sell programs and making a lot of money. So anyway, Wouter Bassoon, Dr. Wouter Bassoon was one of the few people that actually testified about it. And they weren't just testing biological weapons. They were also testing other drugs, using those for political and military applications: cocaine, diazepam, ketamine. Saw an interesting article about the ketamine hole. If you take a bunch of ketamine, kids, you'll go into a K-hole. Don't do it. It's not a good thing. It's really bad for you. But, it'd be great if you wanted to torture somebody, maybe try to extract some information out of them. And regardless of whether torturing people or giving them chemical truth serums is effective, the government's still going to try it. They were like, well, I don't know. We paid a guy to see if he could remote envision, what's happening in Russia, remote viewers. And if that seems wacky, it pales in it is wacky and pales in comparison to other things they were doing with biological weapons. So whether or not the Ebola outbreak is part of a U.S. weapon from Fort Detrick or part of this South African apartheid and racist justification for chemical weapons, and just think about that for a moment. Most of the application for these kind of weapons, for these soft killers, is for racist ideologies, eugenic ideologies. I mean, that was the reason they created them. They were afraid of the Africans. They were afraid of them being overthrown. They were afraid of becoming irrelevant and the tide changing. And that's, kind of what dictators do. And so we can talk about dictators all day long, but the U.S. has more chemical weapons and biological agents than all of these other governments combined. And, well, the justification is still the same. Just in case, last resort, we're going to gas you all and kill you. So, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's not even really that provocative. That's the point of keeping these weapons. And that's the real story here, is that most of these weapons have been created for these reasons, and still today we have them, and we will use them. And interestingly enough, the president of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama, issued an executive order this week to stop all research and trials into germ and biological warfare that were being conducted in the U.S., to stop all federal funding. Not to stop it all, but just to stop all federal funding of these research programs, which, raises a red flag in my mind. It's a point of interest that they would do this, and it makes me wonder what's really happening behind those curtains. Because if this was a U.S. biological weapon, why would you want to do this unless you were in fear? Why would you want to go after those companies that are working and keeping these projects, off of the federal payroll, out of the limelight, keeping them secret and private and unfoyable? I don't know, but it seems to me that there's just this air of something odd going on with Ebola, other than all of the obvious things and all of the fear porn that has become this. With all of the really, I think, scary and relevant aspects to this, the new White House moratorium bans labs from creating super viruses. I was looking for this. On Friday, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy announced a mandatory moratorium on all so-called gain-of-function research. Look that up. Very interesting. So-called gain-of-function. This includes work that creates new enhanced pathogens, agents that are more readily transmissible or infectious or otherwise better than their counterparts in the non-laboratory world. So what happened here? Is this an admission that this may have been a biological release, that this may have been something that was lab created? Is this a concern of the Obama administration? Is he worried that they're going to create race-specific bioweapons targeting black people? I don't know, but it makes me ask those questions. It really does make me wonder. And, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, all things are on the table. Everything has to be within reason or consideration. It has to be on the table because the government has done so many bad, not just the U.S. government, not to just bang our government all day long, not to be, some sympathizer, some Russian sympathizer, commie. Governments across the planet have pretty much universally gone after chemical weapons, using those for their own personal interest, whatever they may be. And, that goes back as far as you can imagine, human history. So anyway, the ban on gain-of-function studies, a much more wide reaching and rigid version of the ban enacted in 2012, is being presented as temporary as policymakers and hopefully a few actual scientists. A little stab at Mr. Kane there, the political operative. Somebody that knows about, virility, pathogens, might have a degree in that, maybe went to medical school or something that would be more relevant. I don't know. Anyway, so there you go. I mean, the history is there. I don't know that this is a U.S. biological weapon, but some of the reactions really make it questionable. Some of the solutions, obviously, I mean, shame on the alternative media, which you hope to be able to get a better grasp of what's really happening. I got this in my email box: 4 ways to prepare yourself for an Ebola outbreak. And some of the things here are pretty common sense, but there's a great pitch in all of this. 1, boost your immunity now to shield yourself tomorrow. There you go. Be healthy, less likely to catch Ebola. I guess that makes sense. I mean, it is a virus, but having a better immune system, that's a great way to do it. So, doesn't seem too self-serving by telling people, get healthy, get active, eat good food, run, maybe exercise a little bit. It's going to definitely give you better immunity and resistance to viruses. Only 50 to 60% of people that are living in Liberia die from Ebola. That's not bad considering. 2, maintain a storable food supply. This is where it gets really funny. It's like, okay, well, so I need to buy some food from you. Buy your protective gear. You need a gas mask. And, of course, inform yourself. Listen to more of my radio show and more things listen to more media that is trying to scare you into freaking out and giving over your rights for temporary, non-existent security and safety to a threat that is so minimal at the moment that you would wonder why it garners the attention, other than the fact that it's Ebola. I mean, that's why it garners my attention. It's because this has been weaponized for years. It is the creme de la creme of biological weapons. It's become almost the genesis of what people for the last 100 years have been trying to create, and that's weaponized Ebola. I mean, you hear about it all the time. So, if you listen to, if you look into, I don't know, the actual fundings and mechanism of war and what it's always been about, and that is controlling populations. It's pretty simple. and self-serving. So I think we should have to focus here for at least a moment on the Ottawa shooting, several shootings in Canada, and things are changing there. Now they're going to change the laws because there was an attack on government people. Okay, people that are attacked in government. When that happens, it becomes a whole different problem. So the Parliament shooting, the Canadian Parliament gunman had planned to travel to Syria. He's a bad jihadist. He was going to go fight along ISIS. He by all every stretch of the imagination is the perfect patsy for, and really, I mean, all he needed to be was a conspiracy theorist and a climate change denier, and he would have been the perfect example of what the government needs to surveil and who they need to go after. So this shooting happened. I have to say, watching the video that was immediately released on YouTube that was picked up by the Globe and Mail, spending, I don't know, probably about 2 hours of my day trying to figure out where this YouTube video came from, and then looking at all of the angles. Now, this is the most interesting thing about what happened in Ottawa, is that it was filmed with what looked like, I don't know, probably 10 different cameras and cameramen or ladies that were all over the Parliament building. And how quickly this video was put together and was in my happy hands. I mean, the shooting had happened no longer than, I don't know, maybe an hour before I was able to sit down. I'd heard about it on the radio, and I was able to drive to my office. By the time I got there, there's a video of the whole incident. We already have our hero, Sergeant of Arms Kevin Vickers. The story's out there, the narrative of who he is, and very, very well-liked and influential Kevin Vickers that is well-connected to his family. He's part of the royal family. He's also one that provides security services for dignitaries. Interesting cat. So, to get all of this so quickly was, I guess you could say it was refreshing, but concerning. And the multiple videos. So just go back and watch some of the video footage, and I think that that's the most remarkable aspect of it. And, of course, this guy is a PCP head. He's a dipper. He gets lunched out, and he's also a crackhead that for 2 years has been begging the government to put him in jail. Now, you can't make this up. I mean, the guy, there's so many people that don't want to be in jail that are completely, just not dangerous, that are not clinically insane, that are not sympathizers with Muslim terrorists and aren't insane, impressionable people that want out of jail. This guy wants in. So, that's interesting. The amount of interest that he put into being arrested and the amount of threats that he waved at the government and at just about everybody that he came in contact with for the last 2 years makes you wonder, well, I mean, if you're not, why do we put so many people in jail for just such arbitrary things? But this guy wants to be there, can't get into jail. Can't do enough. He even said that he would shoot the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. Doesn't matter. The guy can't get in jail. I mean, making threats against everyone, for whatever reason, not a threat, not a big deal. And the obvious solution has now become total Orwellian surveillance state. Stephen Harper, they're already working on it. The only thing that they don't have that, and maybe they're just slow rolling this, but they don't have all of the legislation put together yet. But they're working very hard. They already have most of it. And tell you what, all you got to do is threaten a politician, and they're writing laws. They're taking your rights away. They are immediately very interested in their own safety. So that was one of the other things. This guy, let's see, the motives there. He did say that he was a Muslim and blah blah blah, but they've already immediately tied this guy to ISIS. It doesn't matter what ultimately becomes of that. Just the notion, just the insinuation that he may be, the careful insinuation. Well, allegedly, maybe we've seen this Facebook page. They go to his social media. They go to look into the psychological reasoning that he had done all of this, and it becomes a soap opera once again. So next week, they're going to have the new Canadian Spy Agency bill. Canada will introduce legislation next week to give more powers to its spy agency, a bill that will be largely unchanged for one drafted before this week's attack in Ottawa. From the one drafted before this week's attack in Ottawa. Now, that's pretty damn convenient. Got a big spy bill. I mean, I don't know that this guy is a complete patsy and this is a government false flag operation, but man, it's just immaculate timing. I mean, somebody like Stephen Harper has to be, I don't know. I mean, if there's something that can really ink the deal, it's a crazy parliament shooter. And this is good because the politicians that may have voted against Stephen Harper giving more power to the spy agency, they might be compelled now. You just never know how far that next guy will get into the parliament. Wink, wink. So anyway, back to the article here that came out of Reuters. The government will put forward more measures later. The source said, of course, they will include wider powers to address security threats in the wake of the killing this week of the 2 soldiers and the assault on Parliament Wednesday. Yeah, there was 2 soldiers that were shot as well. And there's there was, of course, 2 gunmen. Just always there's 2 gunmen, and then there's 1 gunman, and then there's just that guy that did everything. And well, it doesn't really matter if it was 2 guys or 1 guy or not, or how many people it may have been. The people of Ottawa will be subjugated further, and this just helps push forward this agenda. I mean, regardless of how much intelligence the government had. I mean, how can you get more intelligence? Why do you need more surveillance? This guy's telling you to put him in jail. That's one thing that kind of just makes you laugh, right? We need more spy powers, obviously. No, you don't. This guy is telling government people that he wants to be put in jail, that he's crazy. I don't know how many more things this guy could have done. How many more things can you do to get yourself blacklisted, to get yourself on the government radar? I mean, I don't know what you have to do other than, start a Facebook fan page calling for the assassination of, political leaders. I mean, how many more things can you really do to put yourself on the radar? No, it doesn't matter because it's always about monitoring dissent. It's always about the people. So when you hear surveillance, just remember that if you look back throughout human history, all the way to ancient Rome, even to Babylon, security and surveillance have always been about monitoring political dissent. Here's a good example. MI5 spied on leading British historians for decades. Secret files reveal Eric Hobsbawm and Christopher Hill had their phones tapped, correspondence intercepted, and friends and wives monitored. Why? Because Orwell was right. Yeah. It's the government's interest to write history, to make sure that people that might paint them in a bad light, that they're completely compromised and that they are easily controlled and that the government knows what's going to be said about them at any moment. I mean, it's obvious. Why wouldn't they spy on people that get to dictate the truth of the future or to write history? That's what really, really bothers me about all of this. I've said it 100 times. If you listen to this podcast for several years, it's that the people writing history right now are painting this picture of what's happening for the future generations. And that's why I feel completely obligated to counter this, to make sure that there is some record that there were dissenters that, well, are the target of most of these operations that will have a counterpoint to the so-called official version of history. So there you go. I mean, read the article. It's telling. The Guardian ran the piece. I'm pretty excited about that, at least. There are some things that are making their way through the matrix, but, at the end of the day, this isn't going to get, 5 o'clock news coverage. This isn't going to get a lot of press other than internet press. Oh, yeah, by the way, other interesting things that elections and things that will probably play into what I consider to be the late October surprise. Every October, the elections are coming up, and there's an October surprise, and everybody's waiting for this. This is a perennial thing where we wait for the big surprise. What is it? What is it going to be? The crash of the economy, 2014, silver tripling, Ebola outbreak, martial law, state of emergency, race riots, weapons of mass distraction. Well, I thought this was interesting because it seems like either it's choreographed or somebody just turned on the crazy machine. The blood moon is aligned just right. Scorpio, is producer Craig, 33, on Twitter, noted yesterday to me that maybe things are aligned, and at this time, when Scorpio is, I don't remember which sky it's in, but just people start going crazy and just, nutty. But I don't think it's really so much that. I mean, people are getting shot and killed every day. 3 deputies were attacked and killed, and that probably is not going to get near as much attention as the school shooting that took place there in Washington State. But anyway, there was this NYPD hatchet man. Did you see this? Okay, they're saying that Zale Thompson, he may be an ISIS sympathizer as well. He wielded a hatchet at NYPD officers, 4 of them. He was shot dead because, don't bring a hatchet to a gunfight against officers. Not the brightest thing in the world to do, but nonetheless, I mean, just kind of some of the other crazy things that happened this week that were all happening at one time. So you just wonder, I mean, is there a magnetic effect? Did the government turn on the heart machine to mess with people's minds, turn on the wacky vibes where everybody's just like running around, killing each other? I don't know. It seems weird. It does seem weird. So, and very advantageous to all of these political issues. One of which is the potential for the false flag shooting that happened at this Marysville school. I want to talk about this because I saw it, and it's a poisoning of the well. It always happens. I think it's up to me and a few others to point out some of the not necessarily disinfo, but what ultimately could be very counterproductive, easily dismissible disinfo that is attached to real events. So saw this. It's all over Reddit. It's a big story. I saw it on a few other alternative media sites. They have this Marysville School District, a cache of this law enforcement SWAT team training drill that was taking place at the school district in a fenced parking lot the same day or day prior to this event happening. So you're like, wow, so the law enforcement, and basically the accusation is that the law enforcement agency there, the local SWAT team, was at the Pilchuck High School before the lockdown and was running a drill. Now, I thought, well, okay, let's just look into this and see what may be happening, because the obvious vicious false flag attack, or the potential for it, is in question, and there's a lot of people out there. There is this controversial gun control measure on the ballot in Washington State that's going to be voted on in less than 2 weeks, and an active shooter exercising multiple or involving multiple agencies yesterday took place at the same time or just a day before. So, what's the chance for that happening? Actually, sadly enough, it's very high. Now, the SWAT team was not at the high school in question. They were at the, I think it was because the school district has 20 some odd schools, and they were actually at a parking lot at one of the maintenance yards or bus facility where, that hence the large fence, running one of these drills. And these are very commonplace, so commonplace that they'll actually put signs out, SWAT team training, exercise taking place, because it's dangerous. You don't want to walk over to the school whenever the SWAT team's doing active shooter drills, and schools across the country, probably across the world, are allowing SWAT teams to do this. So it's happening all the time. Does that mean that this is a false flag? Absolutely not. And the fact that it's a coincidence, it's not even so much a coincidence. It's just pretty much what police departments practice for now. There's a lot of attention on active shooter drills, and it's because we have so many of these stories coming out and so much of a national focus on active shooters. And, well, anyway, some of the things that kind of raise some red flags to you or to me is the fact that this kid who assassinated his girlfriend and a couple other kids because she would not go out with him, kind of smacks of, the misogyny aspect to it, that women are objectified, that, this guy who was the prince of the high school, their prom prince, this kid who was from a very affluent Native American family that was well liked. He was, popular. He wasn't the outcast. He's kind of the opposite. Well, let's see who's whistling over here. Somebody's whistling at me. Doot 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 doot. Might be important. Oh, okay. Yeah, on our way. I can't do that. I'm talking on the radio. Duh. Actually, we're almost done here. Wow, we are almost done. Anyway, just things that are not typical. This is a very atypical event, and he's a very atypical shooter, and didn't have any of the problems that you would see associated with other children that would shoot their classmates, which are picked on, bullied, unliked, unpopular, not good looking, not rich, this is a guy that had no problems on the surface and that had everything going for him on the surface. That brings into question, why, what would really be the motive? Was there more to this shooting and more to this story? The false flag aspect and the very easily debunkable initial conspiracy theories being propagated on places like Reddit that can and easily have been and easily are used as clearinghouses for disinfo from intelligence agencies, from anyone who wants to use them. That's always kind of tell too that something's just not right, because it's easily dismissible. Anybody that does a little Google searching themselves can quickly see why this whole thing is a non-issue. The cache of this SWAT team. Oh, they've changed their front page. It no longer says there's a SWAT team training exercise. Actually, you can find it all over the place. It's cached. I read the whole piece here, and the whole announcement, really, that they were going to be doing this. And like I said, there's a lot of other things that are wrong with this. And, of course, you always go right back to gun control and the need for more surveillance, more medical and biosurveillance. That's one of the things that kind of parallels or transcends across all of these topics, is that we need to be more afraid. We need to give more power to people. We need to buy more products, give more people money, and, well, we need less people. We need less people at the end of the day. That's what you take from the events of this week, or at least the most popular ones that are getting focus and attention. Let's see. All right, yeah, well, we've run the course here on this podcast. I want to thank all of you for being part of the show and continuing to listen to it. There we go. Technology. And continue to support it. You know, we don't sell you seed vaults. We don't sell you male enhancements. We don't sell you fear or fear porn. And we don't profit from it. We only profit when you support us. And support has been dwindling. We need a lot more of it to continue the broadcast, to continue to put this out and do what we do. So continue to support it. And we'll be back next week with another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. Until then, take care.